Okay guys, so now we're going to look at track records. Now, one of the most important things to mention about track records, one that is going to affect you, is track records is how you get paid. This is how you submit to us that you've completed a lesson by updating a customer's lesson report. Now, if I scroll down here onto your schedule, you'll see on each lesson, I now have an option saying update track record. Now, this option will appear 1 hour after the lesson start time. So if the lesson was meant to start at 8 o'clock, that option to update the track record would open up at 9 o'clock. If the lesson was meant to start at 10:30, it would open at 11:30, and so on. Now, a track record, this is updating what a student has covered on that lesson. Now, our suggestion is to use this as part of your debrief, okay, and actually complete it on the lesson with the student. Now, the students aren't aware that this is how you get paid. They see this as a way to monitor their progress and mark them on how well they're doing. So my suggestion is for the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes of the lesson, when you're normally parked up in front of their house and you're doing the debrief about how well they've done, what they need to improve on, you're going to be using the track record to actually do this. Now, to update a track record for a lesson, it's really easy. So if I had Bob's lesson at 8 o'clock today, so I pulled over at the end of the session and I'm going to now do his debrief. So I would click on this option saying update track record. So when I click on that, it will take me through to that specific track record for that lesson. And as you can see, there's different options here. Now, these different options are the different aspects to driving. So you've got moving off at an angle, the cockpit drill, speed on approach, crossing traffic. You've got a lot of different things here. One thing to remember is you're only going to be marking them on what they cover on that specific lesson. So let's just say, for example, if I had Bob and I had him pulled over and we covered a few aspects, I would be having a conversation with him. And I would say something along the lines of, okay, Bob, so today we've covered changing gear. How do you think you've done with that? And I would get the pupil to grade himself out of 1 to 5. So Bob may grade himself on a 3. I may look at that and I might say, okay, Bob, well, I wouldn't actually see you a 3. There's still a few things that we need to improve on. So I would actually see you a 2. So then I'm going to click on the drop down box and I'm going to give him a 2. Then I'm going to cover the other aspects that we've done in that lesson. Okay, so maybe we've covered some mirrors and vision and use of mirrors. So I would be looking at that and I'd be like, okay, Bob, you made some improvements today. So you're getting very good at using your mirrors. So I'm going to give you a 4. Do you agree with that? Do you not agree? And actually involve the customer in a conversation here. So once you've went through and you've actually graded the different aspects that you've covered on that day, you would just scroll down to the bottom. And if you remember when we covered the customer's profile, then you'll remember that there was actually a section about a note. Now, this is notes that you put on to remind yourself of what you want to cover on the next lesson, or this is notes that you want to be reminded of something in the future. So this note is not seen by the customer at all. This is only for your benefit. So if I put on here and I want to cover, I don't know, night driving or bad weather or the sharp left reverse on the next lesson, I would leave myself a note. So I would maybe put something like next lesson, work on sharp left reverse. So once I've completed exactly what the customer's done on that specific lesson, I've put the note in for myself. All I'm going to do is click submit. Now what this is now doing, once I've clicked submit, it does 3 things. Firstly, it updates the student's account, so it shows them what they've actually conducted and how well they've done on that lesson. It also updates your customer profile side of your account, okay? And that's the section that we looked at when we went into track records there, which is the box where they're graded on through 1 to 5. Now, also what it's done, the final and third thing, and the most important for you guys, is that's now requested payment. So this payment will now be paid to me tomorrow. So again, submitting a track record, really important for you guys because this is how you get paid. So now you can see once that's submitted, you can see that the option here is now actually disappeared. So I now can't submit this lesson for this customer. So that means that that one's been done. So now again, if I look at John, and I know now that I need to update his track record. So I'm going to look at John's track record now, and I'm going to update this with what he's specifically done on his lesson. So he might have been really good at controlling the clutch. He might have been really good at moving off safely. But his control emergency stop might have been very, very poor. So I've given him a 1. So then all I would go down is I would scroll down to the bottom, and I could put a note on saying that I need to work on emergency stop on the next lesson. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to click submit. And again, that's done those three things. So it's updated the customer side of things to show how well they've done or what they need to improve on. It's updated the track record side on your customer list to show what you've actually covered on that lesson. It's updated the note. And the final and again most important thing, it's requested your payment. Now, if there's ever any lessons that you don't submit on the same day the lesson is going to go ahead, then that lesson then drops down into unsubmitted track records. So unsubmitted track records are lessons on a previous date, which I haven't submitted a track record for. So I haven't updated the customer's account to see what they've actually done. So you can see here, I actually had a lesson with this customer on the 4th of July. Now that was over a month ago, and I still haven't updated the track record. Now, if you are leaving these track records for a long period of time, the likelihood is you're not going to remember what you've actually done on that lesson. Okay, you're going to have lots of customers and lots of lessons in the meantime, so it's going to be very convoluted, your knowledge of this lesson. So that's why it's important that you actually do the lesson, ideally at the end of the lesson with the customer there as well, so they can see the feedback, or at the very latest at the end of that day. And this just gives a better understanding of what the actual track records will be. So if I have an unsubmitted track record, again, I would just click on it. So this one here for John on the 9th of August, I'm going to click on update track record. I'm just going to fill out exactly what he's done. And then I'm just going to submit that. Now what you'll see now is because now I've actually submitted that track record, so again, it's updated the customer's side, it's updated my side, and it's requested me payment. When I go back to my dashboard, what you'll actually find is you'll find that that lesson specifically now, has been removed from unsubmitted track records because now I've actually submitted that. So if I just scroll down here, you can see it's no longer there. Now that is because I've now submitted that lesson report and that lesson has now been completed and I will get paid for that. Now, if you look here, I've actually got 8 unsubmitted track records for previous lessons. That means that this is 8 lessons that to date I have not been paid for. Now, money is very, very important. That's why a lot of you guys do this job. So submitting these payment requests, submitting these track records is very, very important. Now, in relation to tests, if someone has a driving test, there's a slightly different process to follow. So you do update a normal track record. Okay, so if I find one here, so you can see John had a test on the 31st of July. And you can tell that this is a test because it has a test location in the track record part. Okay, so to update a test, so if someone actually passes a driving test or if they fail a driving test, again, you're just going to click on update track record and this will kick you through to a track record. Now, once you're in here, because the customer is going to be doing an hour before the test, you're still going to be conducting some sort of driving lesson. You're still going to be covering certain aspects. So you still have to mark something in one of these sections. So whenever you're recapping with the customer or whatever you're covering again, then you need to mark it on. So if it's coming up with a test, then you could be covering something like reverse parking. They could have hit a 5 because they're actually getting up to a test standing with that, and then maybe a sharp left reverse. So you're going to mark everything that they cover on that hour before the test. Now, when you go to the bottom, you'll see that the only update to this is that you've got to put a test result in here. So you've now got pass or fail. Now, if a customer has failed a test, you just click on fail, you click on submit, and that again submits your payment request, updates their side to show them what they've covered on that lesson, and it updates your side as well to show what you've covered with this customer on that lesson. And then you would click submit, and that would submit the payment as normal. Now, if that customer has passed their test, and if you click on pass, and then if you click submit then, what that does, it's effectively the same as cancelling a customer off in the customer's log. So if I click submit now, what it would do is it would remove this customer from my diary. So if I click submit, this is now going to update the customer to see that they've actually passed their test and it'll remove them from my diary. So I did have 2 customers on my diary. This will drop me down to 1. So I now have only 1 customer, 1 active customer on my diary. I now have 1 pass this year. But if I just go down here, you can see all of my other unsubmitted track records have now disappeared. The reason those have disappeared is because when I've put John down as passed, that's the final thing I really should be doing on his account. So I've put him down as passed, it's now removed him from my list, which has also removed all of the unsubmitted track records. So before putting someone down as a pass on a track record, the first thing you want to do is make sure all of the other track records relating to this customer have already been completed, because that's how you get paid and that's how the customer gets updated about what they've progressed throughout the lessons. Now, the other thing you should be doing before submitting this track record as a pass is uploading that pass photo, because now that I've actually submitted this track record down as a pass, if I go into my customer list, you see John is no longer there. So it now removes the option for me to be able to upload a pass photo as well, which again affects the advertising side of things. So that stops us from being able to advertise you to John's friends or family. So the last thing you want to do on an account, like I mentioned before, is do anything that's going to remove this customer from you. So cancelling off the customer in the customer list, just here, and also marking them down as a pass on the track record. They are the two very last things you should be doing with a customer. Make sure the customer's account is fully up to date before you do anything else. Okay, if you remove this customer from your account, it's going to remove everything else that's still to be done, such as track records and uploading photos. Now, one final thing in relation to submitting a track record, the other thing you need to know is, how do you get paid if someone doesn't show up for a lesson? Because you need to actually update a track record to say that they didn't show up. Now, that again is simple. So I'm going to look at Lee here. So at 1 o'clock I had a lesson with Lee. Unfortunately, Lee didn't turn up for his lesson. So I still need to click on update track record, and that's going to take me through to the standard track record I'm going to update as if he'd completed some sort of aspect of the lesson. Now, because he hasn't actually turned up for his lesson, I'm not going to submit anything on any of these sections because he hasn't covered anything. If I just scroll down, you have a red button there saying no show. Now, if you click no show, what that's now going to do is that's going to submit the customer's lesson report, okay, to show that they didn't show up for the lesson. It's also going to update your side of the account to show that the customer didn't show up for the lesson, and it's also going to submit your payment request. That's obviously one of the most important things. So now you can see I've updated Lee to see he didn't show up for his lesson, and now the update track record section has disappeared. So if someone doesn't actually show up for a lesson, okay, you follow the no-show process, i.e. sending those 3 text messages and putting the card to the door. Then you would go through to this section on your dashboard and you would submit the track record as a no-show. That submits your payment request. Now, one question people sometimes ask is, what happens if someone cancels a lesson at short notice? How do I fill a track record in for that? The question is, you don't. You don't need to submit a track record for a cancelled lesson. When a customer cancels a lesson off at short notice within the 48 hours, it will remove the lesson from your diary, so there's no report for you to fill out, but it will automatically request your payment. So there's nothing for you to do in that instance. So all you would need to do is sit back and watch the money come in. Now, you will get obviously a text and an email to confirm to you that the customer's cancelled at short notice. So you know at that point that we've took action and that you will be paid the following day. So that's everything in relation to track records. Now, it is important that you submit these, like I say, to keep the customer up to date on their side of things so they can see that they're progressing, and also for your payment requests as well. So like I say, use these as a debrief tool, because then at least your customers will feel like they're getting some extra benefit out of these track records as well. If you do have any questions in relation to track records, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. We'll happily help you as much as we possibly can. But until the next video, guys, thanks for watching.